Have you ever been listening to an astrology show and had an astrologer tell you all about a transit and thought to yourself, okay, but how the fuck does this actually affect me? Stay tuned because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's video. I'm Alexandra Blair of 9 Lives Astrology, your fearless host. And here on my channel, we spend every day taking astrology out of the dry, dusty old transit lists and textbooks behind my head. And we try to actually breathe some life into it and empower you with the tools that you need to cut through the astro anxiety and to cut through the overwhelm and figure out which transits are actually going to be impacting you in your real life. Today is no exception. We are going to be talking about how to personalize astrology media. The astrological arts and transit tracking are infinitely complicated subjects, and you could spend a lifetime specializing in one little corner of this work and still not know everything that there is to know about it. I'm going to equip you with a couple basic tips and best practices that you can use to personalize astrology media and make it all about you. The most basic principle that I want you to do when you are listening to astrology media is to imagine that the transit that's being talked about is in an overlay to your own natal chart. So if you're in Aquarius rising and there's an eclipse in Aquarius, that's a first house eclipse for you. If you're a Libra rising and there's some big transit happening in Aries, that's a 7th house transit for you. This is the first and most basic principle of listening to astrology media and personalizing it to yourself. I'm going to use Zoe Kravitz's A-rated birth data as an example because she has this juicy 29-degree Jupiter in Taurus. I'm going to be using a tool called the Bi-Wheel. I use it on my astrology software, Astrotheoros. If you listen to this channel, you know that I'm running a fall promotion with Astrotheoros, so you can test out a month free of this software if you use my code, the number 9 lives. It supports me, it supports the channel, but really I recommend it because I use this tool every single day. There are definitely free tools you can use. It's just not as functional as Astrotheoros, which is extremely affordable, and I recommend it to all my clients and students. So looking at our Astrotheoros, we pull up the Bi-Wheel, and the Bi-Wheel shows us transits on the outer ring in relation to Zoe's natal chart on the inner ring. As you can see on April 23rd, 2026, Venus and Uranus will make a conjunction at 29 degrees of Taurus, which I've been looking at for a year and I'm kind of excited about. For Zoe, this is happening directly atop her natal Jupiter, and it's happening in the 8th house. So the combination of these planets, Jupiter and Venus, who both want to say yes to things and bring opportunity and goodness into our lives, they are forming a conjunction in the 8th house of joint property and investments and taxes and income and inheritances. I would probably expect some unexpected money or resources coming in, either through the sale of a property or possibly some legal action or some kind of inheritance. It's important to note that this Venus-Uranus conjunction is happening opposite Zoe's natal Venus-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. It's not opposite by degree, but those voices are still at the negotiating table talking to one another. And that's something that you might want to sit with, journal with, investigate previous occurrences of, or work with an astrologer to get a deeper understanding of how that's going to play out. But this is a perfect example of how you take that transit, the Venus-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, and you locate it into your own natal chart. For Zoe Kravitz, that's in the 8th house. That brings us to our second piece of advice, which is that if you have natal placements or planets directly in line with where a transit is going to happen, so that's 0 to 3 degrees of where a transit is going to happen, that's something that you definitely want to pay attention to. Now, we saw an example of this in Zoe's chart, but I'm also going to bring up Cynthia Erivo's excellent chart, and I'm going to use an untimed chart so that you can see how we would actually do this for those of us who don't have confirmed birth times. She has a 17-degree Capricorn sun, and this coming January, there's going to be this ménage à trois lineup with the sun and Venus and Mars all around 16 to 18 degrees of Capricorn. The sun will conjoin Venus, then the sun will conjoin Mars, and it all happens within a couple days of each other, right atop, for example, Cynthia Erivo's sun. This is all happening in a sextile to Cynthia's Jupiter in Pisces, and depending on when she was born in this day, that moon in Taurus would be closer or further away from an exact degree-based trine to everything that's going on here. So I would imagine a blending of the significations of all of these planets, and if we had time data for her, also all of these houses. This last tip is intermediate, and let me tell you, those first 2 tips are going to get you pretty fucking far. But if you have a pretty solid understanding of astrology and you want to follow me down the yellow brick road, buckle up, here we go. First things first, we are going to find your time lord. Now, I posted a video all about how to do this a couple weeks ago, so you can check that video out, or you can use an online calculator. And once you have your time lord in your head, you're going to mainly use your time lord to determine which transits are the most important. So time and again with clients, I see that the biggest transits of their year and the ones that really define the movements of their year are the transits that aspect their natal placement of that Time Lord or the Time Lord's transits. So let me give you an example. If Mars is going to be your Time Lord, we're going to be looking to your natal Mars. We're also going to be looking to Mars's transits during that year. But focus on your Time Lord more than anything as it ingresses sign to sign or any big aspects that it forms. Let's return to our Mars Time Lord example. You are going to feel Mars moving into your 12th house in a Mars year much more significantly than you are going to feel some epic Venus Mercury conjunction, even if all the astrologers are talking about it and saying that it's going to be important. So first things first, if a planet is your Time Lord, pay attention to all things that planet and just keep your antenna up all year scanning for mentions of that planet in the astrology shows that you watch. All right, so let's go back to that Zoe Kravitz chart with this intermediate technique. We know that Zoe is going to be turning 37 this December, which means that she will be entering into a second house perfection year. The second house in Zoe's chart is ruled by Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars. So Zoe's Time Lord this year is going to be Mars. So even though that Venus-Uranus conjunction is happening directly atop her Jupiter, just a few days prior, we have a Mars-Saturn conjunction that is happening conjunct Zoe's natal Mars in Aries and her descendant. So if Zoe was my client, God bless me, what I would be telling her is, yeah, you are going to be hearing all about this Venus-Uranus conjunction on the Astro News and the Astro Weather reports. But what I really need you to focus on is the health and safety and quality of your relationships, because it looks like there might be something significant going on, particularly in those long-term romantic relationships. This also adds a little more context to the fact that Venus-Uranus is happening in opposition to her Venus-Pluto, which we noticed earlier. There are so many more awesome things that we can do with transits. And if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy the recording of a workshop that I gave this Wednesday called Planetary Rhythms, all about how to track astrological transits and to make sense of what you're seeing. And you can download that workshop on my website. The link is in the description. If you're a beginner, leave a comment with your big three, and I will tell you which transit I would be most excited about in this coming year. And if you're an intermediate, bless your soul. Let me know your rising sign and where your Time Lord is natally, and I can give you a little more in-depth preview into what my favorite transit is for you in this coming year. As always, if you need one-on-one guidance, you can book a one-on-one reading or tutoring session with me, and we can get our hands dirty with your natal chart like we are in the movie Ghost, throwing it on a potting wheel. You follow? That's it for me today. Happy transiting. I'll see you next Monday.